Alright, back again, Luke here. And today what I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about joysticks here and buttons for arcade control panels, as well as regular fighting sticks that can be used for home use, like a Dreamcast or PlayStation 3, things like that. I've had a few people ask me, about buttons, especially with sticky buttons. Like sometimes they'll be playing a really good fighting game and they'll play it for days on end, and maybe they'll put it aside for a little while and they'll come back and they'll try and play it again and they'll have some sticky buttons here, and how to clean those or how to go about repairing those. And that's the main purpose why I decided to make this video here. Now, there may be some parts that I miss on this, and if I do, I apologize for that, but I'll try and give you a little bit of an overview as far as what I do to clean these buttons when they get a little bit too grimy and they start to stick. For some people, they like to use the easy route or the easy way of just saying, go out and buy new buttons, they're not that expensive, or go buy a new joystick, it's not that expensive. Well, unfortunately, when you do start going out and buying the new parts, eventually all they're going to be is just manufactured or reprint parts. They're not going to be the original ones. So what I do recommend is trying to salvage these as much as you can while you can, and it doesn't take much work at all. It's not as difficult as what you would think. If you can see here, this is an old Dreamcast joystick. This is one that I've modified to use with some of my arcade machines or arcade boards, because I didn't have any joysticks that would fit or work exactly with those boards, so I decided to go with this a long time ago. So my apologies for anyone who's upset that I did this. Nonetheless, if you notice here, the buttons on this are basically, they're the exact same as the buttons on this Blast City, the Sega Blast City. Both made by Sega, both have Sanwa buttons in them, and these buttons are, eventually they do get kind of dirty, they do stick, yeah, all kind of remnants get stuck in the sides here, make it a little bit difficult for them to, to spring back up. And it's not a big deal at all. If we take a look at the bottom of this, with some of these boards here, you'll see this is really difficult to get these out, especially because it has a casing around the side here. So what we're going to need is a flathead screwdriver. And there will be two tabs, and this is going to be really difficult to see. There's a tab here, and there's another tab that's up here. This is holding the button in place. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and push in on one of these tabs, and just push a little bit. So you can see we got this pushed in just a little, and then we're going to push in on the other tab, and bingo. There's our button. Okay, this will get the button pretty much out of the casing. Now you have to be careful because not all buttons are exactly like this. You can see with this button here, we just pushed in on this tab here. You can see this one just springs in, and the other tab here, this is what holds this in. There are some different variations of buttons as well. For example, like ones that are kind of threaded in there, and with these you have to remove this kind of threaded washer here in order to pull these out. Some other ones have longer tabs, as you can see here. This is a longer version of this, basically the same button but just a little bit longer. So you have to take in consideration some of the differences with the button styles. But once you do get your button out, generally it just has either two pins like this on the side, it has a spinning washer, or it has like two fins that look like they're kind of flared out, and you just push those in and you can pull it out. Now from here, what we want to do is we want to get inside here and take a look at our button. You'll notice that there's a tab here, and there's also another tab here. So all we're going to do is the same thing. We're going to push in. You don't want to push in too much on this. Just push in a little bit and kind of push up. And we'll go over to our other side, push in, and push up. All right. With some of the older buttons here, what may happen from time to time, just because of age, if you push it in too hard, it might just snap the tab right off. So you have to be careful here. And there's our button. As you can see, for this button here, it hasn't had much use. It's it's fairly clean. There's no big problems with it. So this is not going to be one of the buttons that we're having issues with. But what you want to do in general is, take the top part off, and then take a look at the bottom part here, and you'll notice the inside will usually have a lot of grime, or will have a lot of, you know, kind of gunk all in the inside. What I recommend doing for this is you can do one of two things. I guess you could use a towel if you wanted to try and get most of the stuff out first, and then I would recommend getting some canned air. So get some canned air here, and this should be available at your local hardware store or local electronics store. You can check the PC section, but it's just regular compressed air. And what you want to do is kind of, you know, blow out any kind of remnants that are loose on the inside there. You may not be able to get them all out, but hopefully you'll be able to get a few out. Now, here's where some of the interesting part, or the tricky part, comes in. With some of these different buttons, you can remove the whole inside casing. With others, you can't. The casing is just kind of stuck in there. And with this one we should be able to remove the outer casing. There are two tabs in here on the inside, and this one either will pop up or it'll pop out. And well, normally it'll pop out. This thing's got some glue in it. So unfortunately this one's not gonna pop out. But yeah, you'll see that sometimes with these fighting joysticks they'll have glue in here because the manufacturers don't want these to be changed out. If you really need to get these out, you're gonna have to remove all the glue that's around the outside of this here. But sometimes you can get these into 3 pieces, which makes it really easy to clean the inside of this out. If you can't clean this out, you can't get it out to remove it and clean it in a sink, what I recommend doing is getting a Q-tip. Q-tips work really well. You can wet one end of the Q-tip and then try to go around the inside here and clean out the inside as much as possible. Try and remove all of the remnants here. And that Q-tip, as you can see here, this one's not bad at all. You know, there's nothing really on the inside of this one, so this is a really easy clean. And let that dry out. You can use the other side of the Q-tip here to clean it out and dry it. Once you get that all dried out, what you want to do is you can either take this into the sink, and I recommend using soap and water, maybe just a toothbrush. I wouldn't recommend using anything else. For example, on this particular finish here, you'll notice this has a kind of shiny, very shiny finish to it. Now this finish can only be brought back by use of a buffing tool. So if you do have a plastic buffer, then great. If you have some wax and you want to try and buff up these buttons, then that's great. But if you don't have a buffer, and you use something like this, this is a magic eraser, which can be found also at your local stores. If you try and use a magic eraser, even wet or dry, what you'll do is you'll take this finish right off of it, and it'll come out dull. And that's something that you really don't want. If anything, if you have to, around the sides are the ones where you really need to get the grime off, and if it doesn't come off normally by washing it, what I recommend doing is using a wet magic eraser and going around the outside of it to try and clean off all the grime on the outside, but just don't do it on the top part, as like I had mentioned, this thing does have a shiny finish on it, and the magic eraser, even wet, will remove that finish and kind of dull it down, and then you'll have to use some sort of oil to bring it back, or you'll have to use a buffing tool to bring it back. But just you know, go around the sides and try and clean it up here. And once you get everything cleaned up, what I do recommend is a little bit of bicycle oil. Now, it doesn't have to be a lot. This is just some really cheap bicycle oil, and a regular rag here. So all I do is just apply a little bit. You can see there's a little dab of that on there. And after I get done cleaning the top part of my my button here, what I do is I go around the outside here, just the outside. I don't need to go on the inside here at all, and I'm just going to put a light, very, very light coat of oil on this. And you may be asking, you know, why are you putting oil on there? And that is to help make this thing kind of glide. What happens over time, too, is inside the casing here, the buttons will start sticking to the sides. And it doesn't only happen with joysticks like this or joysticks with your arcades. It also happens with regular consoles. So if you have a regular controller for a Sega Master System, a Famicom, Super Famicom, things like that, just by doing this, the same thing, going around the outside here with a little bit of oil to try and polish it up a little bit, make it a little bit more slippery. That will change the performance quite a bit. So once again, when we go to put this back in, there's only one way that this will go back in here. You'll see our two tabs here that are open. Those are going to be the two spots where these two tabs slide in. If you try and accidentally put it in like this, it's not going to go in. So make sure that you try and line it up here. You'll also notice that in the bottom, some of these buttons will actually have either a square shape or they'll have a tab here, and that's to help prevent this from going in the wrong direction. So we'll pop this right in here and push some of that. So really, really springy. Now for some of those really, really bad ones, there are some ones that are pretty, that get really grimy. And let me see if I can find an example for you. Oh, actually I have one right here. I can use the red one. Now, if we take a look at this red one here, this is probably going to be more or less for the arcades than the regular basic controllers. You'll probably find this happens more with the arcade ones, but if you look at the contact pins on the bottom here, you'll see that these are very, very grimy. They're quite dull. Even though they might shine a little bit through the camera, they are quite dull compared to the ones that we just saw just a few seconds ago. And because of that, sometimes you'll have a poor connection. Now, with a poor connection here, that can also really, hinder your playing ability. So what you can do here, which is really easy, is what I recommend doing is getting some very fine sandpaper, fine grit sandpaper. And this works basically for anything that has removable, easily removable buttons. Sometimes they're soldered right to the pins, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But you can do this one of two ways. You could use some steel wool if you want to. You could use some Brasso, which some people like to use, but I try and stay away from it. Or you could use some fine grit sandpaper. So you can take a look at the pins right now, and it doesn't take much. I mean, just a little bit. It's just from, sitting around and not getting a whole lot of contact. The wires aren't changed in and out very much. So you can see there's our pin before, and you can see the pin after, the two differences here. And if we go along this one as well, this will ensure that we have a nice good fit when you go to put these back in. And you can see there, so that polished that right up. And there's the before. You can see the two pins. Maybe a little bit, and the after. So quite a big difference with these, and that will give you a much better contact and hopefully prevent a lot of the problems with joysticks or buttons not registering. Now that's just one part of it. Once again, with some of these buttons there are different parts to it, so you really have to take a look at some of the inside ones. And once again, this is a Sanwa button here, and on the sides we're just going to pop up the one side, and we're going to hold this in place. Now we're going to pop up the other side and take a look at that. So once again here you can probably see the outside of this is a little bit more dry. It's not as shiny as the last one here. And the inside here, I mean, it still looks fairly clean. So I think these are ones that I've done a long time ago, so that's probably why they're in good condition for the most part. But you're going to notice with this one here, this one, it doesn't have any glue on it, so we should be able to pop out this middle part as well. And this one has two tabs on the bottom, and if we push those in, we can pull this cradle out here, and now we can give this a thorough cleaning if we want to take this and clean this up in the bath. Now that we have this part of the button detached, what we're going to focus on is this. Now this can also be the problem. Not only the contacts themselves, but the inside of this. The inside of this thing has some contact points that can easily be kind of corroded or not getting proper contact as well. And this is where some people actually decide to give up and they throw the button out because they think the button is bad. But there's actually another part to it. So on the inside here, you'll see these tabs are kind of pushed inward. We're going to push them out. And hopefully, with this one, maybe this one can't. Normally there are some where you can actually just push the 2 tabs to the side and pop it out. This one's a little bit more tricky. This one actually has 6 rivets in the bottom, or 4 of them which are actually making contact, 4 or 5 that are making contact, and 1 of them that's just kind of hanging in there. This one is a little bit more tricky, and what you'd have to do is you have to go and pull the bottom part off here, which is a little bit more tricky, and it's going to require maybe a thinner screwdriver, and I don't think I have one. Should have double checked that. I don't think I have one, unfortunately. Nope, I don't. But in some cases here, if you just slide in either a very thin screwdriver or you put in a fine blade, you can kind of pull this bottom section apart and it will come apart again. Usually there's a ball and a spring on the inside that connect to these 2 points, and when you push it down here, it changes the contact between them. So that's one example there. I don't know if this one has it or not. We can double check and see if this one has it. Doing the same thing here to get the button out. And let's see, this one too. Try to get this out. There we go. So yeah, this one as well looks like it's the very similar model to the last one here. But if you do get the inside of this opened up, you can, pry it off. If it has these small tabs on it, it's a little bit more challenging, because once you pry this bottom part off, you're going to have to use some sort of glue or something to push it back on, or to keep it back on, because these tabs are plastic here, so they might actually wind up snapping off. So you got to be careful about those. But once you do get it off, you can clean up the small ball that's in the inside. It's just a regular, I think it's a brass ball. And if you use some rubbing alcohol, you can clean it up and put it back in there, and that should work out really nicely for you. There are so many different styles of different varieties of buttons that it can be kind of tricky to know all of them. But in general, if you want to try to clean up your buttons here, there are some where you can remove the outer casing like this, and there's some where you can only remove just the inside part because the other part is connected by either glue, or it's manufactured that way where it's held in there. But once you get this out, yeah, I recommend, like I said, for the outside of the button here, clean this up as much as possible. Then get your oil out. Use a rag or so to put a little bit of oil on the cloth, and go around the outside of this button here to shine it up. Like once again, you can see how it's kind of dull there, and go around it. Like so. And you don't need a lot of oil at all. You can just use just a small amount like you saw right there, and then you can see this, and that will definitely help. We don't have this part. Well, we'll put this back in, and this one will slide back in, and you should push it back in until it clicks, like so. And we'll pop this back in. As you can see, this one has a blade on it. This one also has a blade, so it'll show you which way that you can put it in, which way you can't, and works like a charm. You could also, if you want to, you could put a little bit of oil on the inside using the end of a Q-tip, just to kind of go around the inside edge there, but that should work out really well. And I decided to make this video here for those who do not have a buffing machine, for those who do not feel like going out and buying new buttons. This is a way to kind of clean up old buttons that you have. Definitely if you want to go the full extent and get a buffer and then get new buttons or things like that, that's one way to go. But this is a very simple way of going about cleaning these up and keeping your joysticks working and your buttons working here for quite some time. So hopefully you guys found this a little bit informative and are able to use this a little bit. But yeah, that's about all for me for right now. Like always, I'll put up another video here soon. So thanks for watching.